My name is Amanda Basinger, and I am here to tell you about Chapter 7 of our textbook. It talks about behavioral learning theory, or operant learning. I gave everyone a worksheet. It's 2 pages long. It has a couple blanks where you can fill in your own definition or steps that we'll talk about later. But there's also matching and fill in the blank. Please fill this out as we go. This is going to be a good study tool later. And if you need me to slow down, please let me know. Operant conditioning. It focuses on how voluntary behaviors are strengthened when they're reinforced, or weakened when they're ignored or punished by consequences that follow them. This operant conditioning was made by a person called B.F. Skinner. He created something called Skinner's box. This was a little box or a small enclosure that had a bar attached to a small tray with food pellets outside in a container. He then placed a rat in the box, and when a rat presses the bar, it drops the pellets to eat. The rat only presses the bar after it hears a certain tone. If it gets the tone wrong and it presses the bar, no pellets come out. So therefore it learns that, oh, well, this isn't the right tone, so I'm going to stop. I'm only going to press it when I hear the right tone. So therefore, the behavior is extinguished. There are 8 basic learning principles. We're going to go through these in a lot more detail, but here they are all listed in front of you. Positive and negative reinforcement, punishment, timeout, extinction, spontaneous recovery, generalization, and discrimination. Now, positive and negative reinforcement strengthen the behavior, while punishment, timeout, and extinction weaken the target behavior. As I said, we're going to go through all of these individually. This is the part where on your worksheet it has a little bit of matching, so please let me know if I need to slow down. Positive reinforcement. It strengthens a target behavior by presenting a positive reinforcement after the behavior. For example, your student spends more time studying for a test because of a compliment they got from a teacher about their high test scores on their last test. So they're going to study more, so they were presented with that positive reinforcer from the teacher, which creates that positive or strengthening of the target behavior. Negative reinforcement. You strengthen a target behavior by removing an adverse stimulus after the behavior occurs. For example, a driver putting on his seatbelt to stop the annoying buzzer or the clicking, whatever sound it makes that you don't have your seatbelt on. Or a child picks up their toys to stop their parents from nagging them. Therefore, the adverse stimulus, the annoying buzzer or the parents nagging, is removed by doing a certain behavior, the correct behavior, putting on your seatbelt, picking up your toys. Punishment, also known as type 1 or presentation punishment, it weakens a target behavior by presenting an adverse stimulus after the behavior occurs. For example, you have a behavior that occurs and then they're scolded for it. There's an adverse stimulus that is presented to them. So they're scolded or they're told to write lines about this behavior. So it weakens the behavior. Timeout, also known as type 2 or removal punishment, weaken a target behavior by temporarily removing a positive reinforcement after the behavior occurs. For example, an athlete is suspended from competition, or a child who sits in an empty room for 5 minutes. So you're removing a positive reinforcer. For the athlete, they want to play that game, but they're temporarily removing that by suspending that player. Or a child wants to play in that activity, so they're taking that away and making them sit for 5 minutes. Extinction. It weakens a target behavior by ignoring it. Have you ever seen a mother in a supermarket where their child is just screaming for candy, and and the mother just pushes the car along, just ignoring the child, this is the behavior that they're doing there. It's the extinction. The mother's just ignoring the child. Spontaneous recovery. Extinguished behaviors may reappear spontaneously. For example, a person recovering from substance abuse issues. They're recovering from that, but sometimes it may reappear. They may struggle with it, and then they go back to therapy to try to get away from that again. Generalization. Responding in similar ways to similar stimuli. For example, students who were positively reinforced using study skills in math class would use the same study skills in English, or science, or history. Discrimination. Responding in different ways to similar stimuli. So, for example, teachers reinforce only the desired behaviors and withhold reinforcement following undesired behaviors. So they're reinforcing things like attention and cooperation and obedience, while they're ignoring or not reinforcing the inattention or disobedience. Shaping. It's a complex behavior can be learned by the reinforcement of successive approximations to the final behavior and by ignoring of not appropriate behavior. That's a pretty big definition. I have a simpler one. In other terms, actions that move progressively closer to a desired terminal behavior are reinforced. So when you're trying to teach a student how to play soccer, for instance, correct dribbling technique is reinforced, but the incorrect technique is often ignored. They praise the student when they're doing it correctly. Schedules of reinforcement. Once a new behavior is well established, it can be maintained at that level by the supplying of reinforcement on an intermittent schedule. There are 4 basic schedules. The first one is fixed interval. This is reinforcement after regular time intervals. For example, 5 minutes, 1 hour, 2 days, 3 weeks, something like that. The next one is variable interval. It's reinforcement after random time intervals. For example, random every third day or every 3 weeks. Fixed ratio is reinforcement after a set number of responses. So they've done a drill 10 times or 50 times, then you give them reinforcement. They do it another 10 times or another 50 times, then you give them reinforcement again. And finally, variable ratio. It's reinforcement after a different number of responses each time. So 12 responses, 7 occurrences, 23 occurrences, 18 occurrences. Now, Skinner has his own approach to instruction. He wrote 4 different rules to live by, according to Skinner. Be clear about what is to be taught. Second one, teach first things first. Don't start hard and work your way backwards. Start with the basics. 3, allow students to learn at their own rate. And 4, program the subject matter. Computer-based instruction. It's a moderate positive effect on learning. In particular, simulation programs have had a positive effect on science achievement. Fun fact. There are 3 ways computers are used in schools. It's used as a tutor, it's use of drills and practice, tutorials, simulation programs, things like that. They're also used in school as a learning or problem-solving tool, and learning how to program computers. Now, computer-based instruction isn't a substitute for high-quality teachers, but it can help the teachers to present, explain, apply, and reinforce knowledge and skills that they've already taught their students. So this isn't something that you can plop a student into a room and say, oh, just use your computer, I don't need to say anything. It's not a substitution. It's a helping guidance tool. Integrated learning systems. It's a comprehensive, self-paced learning system. It presents an entire curriculum on the computer. It keeps track of students' performance and provides feedback to the student and the teacher. Research on the effectiveness of this system are mixed. There's mixed reviews of it. Behavior modification. The goal for this is for the teacher to help the students learn desirable behaviors by ignoring or punishing undesirable behaviors and reinforcing the desirable ones. There's different techniques that could be used. We talked about shaping earlier, taking a behavior, setting a goal for it, select your reinforcers, and reinforce successfully each time. Token economics. Students given a token that have no value but can be used to purchase things that do not have value. For example, if a student earns a gold star for doing something well, they can turn in their gold stars to cash them in for things like computer time, or leisure reading time, or even academic games. Contingency contracts. It's a reinforcement supplied after student completes mutually agreed upon assignments. So it can be either written or verbal, and once that student finishes an assignment, for example, working quietly on an assignment for 30 minutes, they are rewarded with 10 minutes of free time, which was stated or written down before for the contract between the student and the teacher. Extinction. As we talked about earlier, it's ignoring the undesirable behavior. So if a student blurts out in class, and a student over here is raising his hand, I'm going to ignore the student who blurted out to acknowledge the person with their hand up. Therefore, the student will recognize, oh, I can't yell out, I have to raise my hand, therefore extinguishing the behavior. And punishment, which we also talked about earlier. It weakens a target behavior by presenting an adverse stimulus after the behavior occurs. Overall, should you use behavior modification? The results of decades of research on these techniques justify their use by teachers. The teachers are in a controlled situation, and it may be possible to arrange experiences so that almost everyone acquires desirable traits and abilities. But there are some criticisms to it. Many students will eventually catch on to the fact they get reinforced only when they do what the teacher wants them to do, and some of them may resent it and misbehave out of spite. Another criticism is the behavior modification methods may lend themselves to inappropriate or even unethical uses. But it is agreed that if we do not systematically use what we know about the effects of stimuli and consequences on behavior, we will leave things to chance. And as teachers, we can't leave things to chance. We have to teach our students the right behaviors, the correct behaviors. So that was chapter 7. Please let me know if you have any questions on the worksheet, and thank you very much.